So hi, today we are with Effie Makepeace. She's a community theatre practitioner from UK, and we are hoping to talk to her about her experiences with theatre. So hi, Effie.
Hi.
If you could just tell us briefly about yourself. I didn't want to go the traditional way of talking and introducing you and saying everything about you. So,
So yes, I call myself a community theatre practitioner, and the way that I generally describe that to people is that I make theatre with people who might not otherwise usually get the chance to do so, whether that's usually different community groups, and I've been doing that for 9 years now, with different people, working in different countries, different contexts. Yeah, many different kinds of groups and in many different kinds of ways. So that's why broadly I say community theatre practitioner.
oh, that's really interesting. So, are you trained in theatre? Is there a specific practice called community theatre practice that you're trained in?
So, the world of community theatre and what's it called, applied theatre, theatre for development, the theatre for education, theatre in education, there's so many different terms and terminologies. The way I came to what I do is for my undergraduate degree, I studied theatre and got very interested in theatre for development, which was completely new to me at the time. And then began working in Malawi with an organization that was doing theatre for development, which is where I got my main experience of leading groups, working with groups, using theatre in lots of different ways, and then kind of gradually found out more about the field and where my practice sort of fits within it. And then I sort of further honed that down. I did a master's a couple of years back in the UK, and that was, even though it was a development master's, it was focusing on my theatre work. So yeah, that's kind of how I came to it.
Oh, wow. So I have a lot of questions, but I am now going to try to narrow all the questions in my mind. What is it about theatre that interested you?
So basically, I wanted to be an actor when I was younger, and I wanted to be famous and winning Oscars and all. And that was my plan for a lot of confidence and friendships and just a space for me to be outside of my normal school environment or home, or just a different space for me to be someone else. And I think that's probably what interests me about theatre and the way that I work, is that what spaces does it offer people to try something new about themselves. What was the original question again? Why am I going on about this?
So what is it about theatre that interested you?
So yeah, at that time I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
and then by the time I began studying and learning more about it, I think, at uni I realized the things that were interesting me were when we were reading about theatre that was happening in prisons, theatre that was happening in schools, and to me that seemed so much more interesting and meaningful for me personally than performing. Performing's great fun, but I was really interested in how people could tell their stories using theatre, and people could, not just about performance, but how people could use it to make sense of their lives, make sense of themselves.
Okay, and you mentioned that you've worked in Malawi, so if you could share some experiences of that.
So I was in Malawi for 4 years. I worked with 2 organizations. The first one was called the Story Workshop. So Story Workshop does a lot of development projects using lots of different media. Theatre is one of them, and they're also very famous for doing radio series, kind of educational radio soap operas that are very popular. And they also have branched into television, I believe, now. So that was really interesting. And then the other one was Nancy Kembe Arts and Development Organization. So Nancy Kembe at the time was doing two things. They were doing development projects in the community, but also really trying to develop and enrich the arts sector in Malawi as a whole by producing touring theatre, by training actors, that kind of thing. So for me, it was the better fit in terms of it really gave me a chance to work on the ground with people in community groups, although I was involved in a lot of their projects. So over the 4 years, basically, there was a community arts club program, which was weekly workshops for different community groups. So we had a group of young women, school dropouts, single mums. We had a group of people with disabilities, a group of young people who've been homeless, and a group of prisoners. And so it was the best job ever. I worked with them every each day in the week, except for one. I would go to the office in the morning, and in the afternoon I'd be out in the community doing a workshop. And the amazing thing about it was being able to work with the same group over, up to 4 years with the women I was working. And during that time, as a practitioner, you're really able to try anything and everything with this group who becomes increasingly more skilled, and you can really see a transformation. And I really mean transformation in the people who you met on those first days and the people who left in the end. And now Nancy Kembe has just restarted a slightly different community arts club program, and some of the original women that I worked with are now leading those groups for Nancy Kembe. So they're employed by Nancy Kembe to do that. So that's what I did basically in Malawi.
Oh, and you mentioned that your master's was also on a similar topic, your thesis, right?
Yes.
So if you could share a bit about that.
Yeah, so for my master's we had to do an action research project, so something that we were already working on, and I had been working at that point with the prisoners for about a year. And during that year, we talked about the way that I work. Issues kind of just emerge naturally from the work that we're doing, so I tend not to go in with today we're going to talk about health or education. It's whatever comes out in the workshops as being meaningful to that group. One issue for prisoners, alongside the very basic needs of food and place for sleeping and soap and things like that, which the conditions are very bad for prisoners in Malawi. One issue was sex that was happening in the prison, which was very common, and in turn its impact on HIV. Malawi has a high HIV prevalence rate, and it's higher amongst prisoners. And studies have shown that there are prisoners who are contracting HIV within the prison because of sex. So this is an issue that's clearly playing on the minds of some of the group members. Some of them are HIV positive themselves, and some of them contracting while in prison. And so this was kind of at the back of my mind. At that point, the US Embassy put out a call for small HIV grants. So they were offering small pots of money. So we applied to work with the group on this issue in depth and create a play that we would then tour to other prisons in Malawi. And the goal being to instigate dialogue between the prisoners and the prison guards, because homosexuality is illegal in Malawi, which puts the prison system in a really awkward situation, because if they were to provide condoms and protect the prisoners that way, they would be seen to be condoning illegal activity in the prison. But this silence means that it's really hard for prisoners to protect themselves. It's really hard for them to report if there's, if they're being pushed into sex that's non-consensual, which does happen. And a lot of the relationships are very transactional. Things like the lack of food mean that sex is often traded for food just as a means of survival, as well as men enjoying loving, consensual, supportive relationships in the prison. That's something that came out very clearly in our research as well. Anyway, so basically,
sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you
Please
here.
do.
You said our research, so, and of what I understood, it was your master thesis. So were you doing it with someone or?
So yeah, part of my methodology was that I was interested in having a group as co-researchers.
Okay.
So at the beginning of the year, we all sat down and I explained that, I'm interested in doing this project. And actually at the time we hadn't got the money from the US Embassy. It was just, I was like, guys, I'm just interested in what's going on with us. So we had long discussions about what research is, what do we mean when we think of research. And they became my co-researchers. So meaning, even though I was the one planning the workshops and leading or being the catalyst in the workshops, as much as possible they would be the ones feeding back to me about what knowledge was being created within the group, within themselves. So we used a letter writing system for this. So everyone had notebooks and pens, and then at the end of every workshop we would do a letter exchange. So every week I would write a letter to the group just saying, this is what's been coming up from me, do you guys agree, or what did you think of this exercise, or this game didn't really work, why not, things like that. And then whoever wanted to would respond, and that way the exchange began. So it's really hard for me to think of it as my research, because there's no way it could have happened without the involvement of that group and without their real engagement in it, and kind of feeling really proud of the work that we did, and the fact that they were able to tell me if I got things wrong or if I misinterpreted something, or they were able to ask me questions. So it was also about them learning from me and me learning from them on a very personal level as well.
That's very interesting. Something very new and different from the traditional kind of research that I have studied.
Yes.
Or we've heard of. And then just to take that forward, what was the final outcome, or, because it was action research, the final product of the action research?
So it's really hard, isn't it? And you guys know also with using theatre as a research methodology, you want to step away from words and finding meaning in that way, and yet at the same time people are like, what did you learn? And so you have to write it down somehow. In the end, I had a thesis that I had to submit for my master's, and that was fine. It featured a lot of video recordings, and as much as possible it had the voices of the prisoners through quotes from the letters and things like that. It also had, I used a lot of reflective writing during my time in the prison, a lot of creative writing, poetry, etc., and it also had that. So even though it was traditional, essay style, it was very much peppered with, I really wanted people to have a real sense of what the experience was like working with the group through my writing, through the words of the prisoners, and through videos also. So that's what it looked like, basically. And it was not just about the tour to the 6 prisons. It was also about our work in general and other things other issues that we'd covered in that year, and what came up for them, what came up for the prisoners.
Okay. And we know that you've been in India for some time now, and you've also worked with different groups here. So if you could share about some of those experiences of working in India.
Yeah, so I've been working here on and off for 3 years now, together with Akshay Khanna, who's also working on this project with us. So him and I, so on the one hand, the work we've been doing with you guys is really interesting. This taking forward the theatre as a research methodology for your project, which has been really, really interesting. In addition, we've also been working as part of the Queer Fest, Delhi Queer Fest, which happens every year around Queer Pride. So, very much we've been participants in a collective process of that, but also where needed, bringing, our theatre skills in. And usually that's just a space to mess around and have workshops and share stories and see if we can make something for performance. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. and that's fine also. And it's I guess creating a sense of movement in that time, in the months leading up to Queer Pride, that just finding an articulation for queerness in Delhi and what that is, and theatre can be useful for some people for that. So that's always something I've been very slightly involved the year before last, and this year I was able to be here for the whole period, and that was really, really meaningful to me, and I feel like that's something I'd really like to keep doing. And this time also I was able to go and work with a union, JJSS, in Bihar, which was really interesting, to run a week-long workshop there with a group of young people and women members of the union. And actually, we went out with the aim of, over the week, various objectives, but mainly, they have a campaign running at the moment about superstitions and blind faith, and how that, which superstitions are problematic and reinforce negative power dynamics, etc. And so that's what we were supposed to be doing over the week. And we did have one play that ended up being about that, but also, as I was saying, emerging from the group was very strongly this issue of marriage, and it's obviously a massive issue for the young people there, and families as well. What to do about dowry and the economic impact that has. So one of our plays it was also about dowry and about whether marriage without dowry is even imaginable. So these have been my experiences so far, in addition to the work that I've done with you guys, the trainings and the workshops that we've done in the communities. So looking forward to more.
Okay. Is there anything that you would like to say to us and our audience?
I don't know.
What are your plans?
Good question. What are my plans? I can tell you some hopes. I don't know about plans. Plans are I'm going home for a bit now. Okay. I have some teaching work to do in different universities back home. I'm hoping to go back to Malawi, and as I mentioned, a lot of the prisoners are being released now, and they're very keen, very skilled, want to set up their own thing, and so I'm going to spend some time just helping them set that up, in terms of, a lot of them might not have administration office type skills, and just want to make sure that they're in a really good, stable place to start something up, and then who knows, and maybe I'll be coming back to India on a longer term basis, or maybe other far-flung places, which I don't want to say in case they don't happen. But I'm talking to a few different people now. Certainly, I'm just, at the moment, what I want to do is just keep doing as much interesting work as lots of different groups. And what I really want to find over the next year is another group that I can work with on a weekly basis, ideally, that will allow me that time to get back into my own practice, stepping away from a training aspect, and really focus on what I've learned in the last 4 years, and bring that back to a community group, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Okay.
So that's the plan.
That sounds really interesting, and we look forward to you coming back and working with you. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
And all the very best.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.